I know there's no real point, but I go back to Jeff's to complain. I think the ad was really misleading, and I want someone at the store to know it. I find a friendly-looking employee who doesn't seem to be doing something at the moment. I show him the ad and point out where I think it was deceptive. He shook his head, let out a long sigh, and then told me that there were actually several better electronics stores in the area and that he could direct me to one of them. It was easy to infer from this that he wasn't happy with his job. I told him that those other stores didn't have sales right now, and he nodded. He then took me aside and told me confidentially that he wasn't planning on staying with Jeff's too much longer, and this would probably be his last week. But he'd see if he could get me a good deal. He asked me about what I was looking for in terms of features. Then he asked me to wait where I was, and he walked off. I wonder what's going to happen. Did I make a valid inference when I took from that ad that all the big-name brands would be on sale? I think so. A valid inference from a piece of writing is supported by the details. For example, the ad said, "Best brands, best features, biggest savings." Now, putting those three things together definitely creates the impression that you'll see the biggest savings on the best brands. It might not explicitly say that, but come on, that's what anyone could reasonably think after reading that. When I read my friend's description of going to her garden and staring into space, I could infer from that description what she was feeling at that moment. I knew she'd been rejected by that school, and so I had context to help me understand what she was feeling. But I could also read between the lines that going out to the garden and then staring into space instead is not normal behavior. Even just reading that much, I could make a valid inference that something was wrong. Here are some other examples of valid inferences I might make. I'll come around on Saturday when I know you'll be out with your kids to pick up the last of my things. If my ex texts this to me, he's saying that he doesn't want to see me. At least that's a valid inference to make from his statement. He wants me to know when he'll be coming around so that I can be sure not to be there. I love your new dress. It's so slimming and the sleeves hide your arms. If a coworker IMs this to me at work, then I know she's saying that I have a problem with fat. She doesn't just say the dress makes me look pretty or whatever. She zeroes in on how it's slimming and the sleeves hide my arms. She's saying I need the help because otherwise I'd look chubby and my arms would look flabby. I could never ask you to ignore seeing what I did, but I really need this job. If a coworker IMs this to me after I see her pocket some money at work that doesn't belong to her, she's saying that she does want me to ignore seeing that. She knows she could get fired and probably would be, and so she's trying to tell me to leave it alone, even though she's literally saying that she could never do that. If there are valid inferences, then naturally there are invalid inferences too. An invalid inference from a piece of writing is not supported by the details. If I make an invalid inference from something I'm reading, then I'm reading something into the writing that simply isn't there. Any inference involves drawing a conclusion about something that isn't explicitly stated. But a valid inference isn't drawn from thin air. It's drawn from a careful examination of the details combined with what I already know to be true. I have a friend named Nolan who is really into a girl named Sheila. He thinks about her all the time. They're friends, but I can tell Sheila doesn't want anything more than friendship with Nolan. Nolan won't give up the dream, though. He came to me the other day to show me a text from Sheila. "I'd love to go to that show with you. I'm really excited about it. I love Lady Gaga, and tickets are so hard to get. Thank you." He said he thought this was a hopeful sign that something could happen between the two of them. He pointed out how excited Sheila was and that she said she'd love to go to the show with him. I personally think Nolan's got as much of a shot with Lady Gaga as he does with Sheila. But why? In the case of the sale ad, I made a valid inference that the big-name brands would all be on good discounts. That wasn't the truth, though, as I found out when I went to the store. So just because an inference is valid doesn't mean that the implication is true. Just because a writer implies something, it doesn't mean that you can always accept those implications as fact. For example, If a political ad says, "You can trust James Kent because he tells it like it is," the ad is literally saying that Kent is trustworthy because he speaks truthfully, and it's implying that the other candidate is not honest and trustworthy. I can't know whether what this statement literally says about Kent's honesty is true without finding more about Kent. And I can't know whether what his statement implies about Kent's opponent is true without finding more about him. Sheila does say that she'd love to go to the show with Nolan. That's literally true. But she's clearly excited about it because she's a big fan of Lady Gaga and tickets are so hard to get. That's the reason she'd love to go. It's not so much about Nolan. It's about Sheila wanting to see Lady Gaga. If she doesn't go with Nolan, she probably wouldn't be able to go at all. Also, I know Nolan's history with this girl, and I just know that Sheila isn't into him. I know Nolan wouldn't want to hear this, but I just don't think anything he wants to happen is going to happen with that girl. Here are some examples of invalid inferences I might make. I'll come around on Sunday when I know you'll be out with your kids to pick up the last of my things. If my ex texts this to me, and I take from this that he'll leave his key to my apartment behind when he leaves, then that would be an invalid inference. He doesn't say anything at all about a key. And there's no implication about anything to do with the key. That would be me reading into what he said. It might be reasonable to expect that he won't keep the key, but he doesn't say anything about that, not even through implication. I love your new dress. It's so slimming, and the sleeves hide your arms. If a coworker IMs this to me at work, and I take from this that she wants to know where I got my dress so that she can get one for herself, would that be a valid inference? Not really. She literally says she loves my dress, but then she follows that with a catty comment intended to make me feel self-conscious about my body. That's really the point here. She might or might not honestly love my dress. It's hard to say. I could never ask you to ignore seeing what I did, but I really need this job. If a coworker IMs this to me after I see her pocket some money at work that doesn't belong to her, it wouldn't be a valid inference for me to take from this that she doesn't think she did anything wrong. No, clearly she does know she did something wrong, and that she could be fired for it. She's not saying she's innocent. She's saying that she wants me to look the other way. It also wouldn't be a valid inference to take from this that she won't steal money in the future. She doesn't imply that she'll stop stealing money. She just implies that I should ignore that she did. The guy comes back after I see him talking to someone who must be his manager at the other end of the store. He asks me what I think of a nice 50-inch Sony they have on the showroom floor. I say that I like it. He explains that it has all the features I'm looking for. And he says that if I'm willing to take that TV, he could give it to me with a 25% discount by calling it a floor model. He says all this quietly, and I get from this that I should also be quiet about my answer. I consider it for a moment and ask if I'd get the box and all the other stuff to go with the TV, and he says that he'd box it up for me and then let me pick it up and back. I tell him he has a deal. 25% puts this TV just within my budget, and it has everything I need. Why not? I thank the guy and he nods. He says he just wanted to do something nice for somebody before he left Jeff's for good. I'm glad that somebody was me. Great job! You've now finished this section. Continue building your skills by moving on to the next section.